Started. Here we go. So welcome everyone. Let's get started. So one moment. So welcome to our Northern Trails webinar, part of our Chicagoland Trails webinar series. Today, before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We'll be recording this webinar and we'll make sure to share the recording and the slides with you in an email afterwards, as well as any links that come up today, any resources shared. Please use the Q&A box if you have questions that come up, and we'll address those questions at the end of the webinar. If you need closed captioning, that's available in your menu. And then we have a lot of previously recorded webinars on we have the Des Plaines River Trail webinar, South Chicago Trails webinar, South Suburban Trails webinar, and West Suburban Trails webinar. All of those recordings are on our YouTube channel. And stay tuned for future webinars. If anyone has any ideas, we're open and welcome to taking ideas and looking for additional speakers for others to share about other trails going on or emerging in our region. So with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague Alex to introduce the trails that we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. And just for a quick visual, we have a map as well, just representing the three trails that we'll be talking about today. So going in order, we'll be starting off with the North Shore Channel Trail, which is in green, and you can see it has two segments of green. So the green is the existing part of the trail, and then that northern section of the light green is what is going to be the extension of extending it from the Baha'i Temple to the Lakefront Trail. And the existing trail is about 6.5 miles currently from Chicago going to Evanston. And John will be speaking about that more later on. The second trail that we have is in blue, the Werber Spur Trail, that kind of runs diagonally and will be a connector between the North Branch Trail and the North Shore Channel Trail when built. And it is about 2.8 miles that starts at Devon Avenue in Lakewood and then stretches to Chicago on Foster Avenue as well. And this is in pretty much the railroad lines were taken away, and there has been a lot of advocacy from residents and the local alderman, Samantha Nugent, to prioritize this project and making sure that it gets built. And Jim will be talking about that project for that. And then the third trail is the Route 53 in red. This is a proposed route, so it does not exist, and it is a larger route that extends kind of from Buffalo Grove to Grays Lake. This was a kind of a long-term project of extending Route 53 that was very debatable, and the project got dropped for the expansion, and now there is a committee of looking at the land to see how it can be developed for a state park or a state trail. And Barbara will be speaking about that. Next slide. So just quickly introducing our speakers on order as well. We have John Fervoy with the Evanston Transit Alliance. We have Jim O'Reilly with the North Branch Trail Alliance and many other more orgs. And then we have Barbara Klipp with the Midwest Sustainability Group. So these are our three presenters today. We're very excited to have them. And I will kick it off to John to talk about the North Shore Channel.
Hey, everybody. I'm an Evanston resident, lived here 25 years, and have enjoyed biking in the city. I used to commute more often to downtown Chicago, and I was always kind of frustrated. How do I get to the Lakefront Trail? And how do I connect to other neighboring trails in the area? So during the time I've been here in the past 10, 12 years, started meeting with a group of friends and associates who are interested in similar things. So we started conducting group rides to kind of publicize the dead ends in our area. And we would publicize our events with posters and write stories about the issues in the area. And so when I'm talking about the dead ends, this is kind of what our trail system looks like in the Evanston area. Evanston is the pinkish area with a light red line around it. And you can see there are plenty of dead ends in our area. And, you know, I've wondered why historically that has come to be. And, but we focused on, you know, if we could only connect some of these lines, it would be good for the active transit in the area. It'd be good for the city of Evanston if we could bring more bike traffic through here, more shoppers, tourists, etc. So why isn't that the case currently? And what would it take to connect some of these dead ends? If you look at the region, you can virtually ride on trails with some gaps, you know, pretty much from Wisconsin to Indiana and maybe into Michigan. So, you know, if we could bridge our gap in Evanston, we could make this continuous route one step better. And People for Bikes has given Evanston a low rating for its network. So it's not just us imagining this. It's not just us North Shore folks whining about our plight. But, you know, it is a recognized issue. You know, so again, I started out imagining a connection between the Green Bay Trail and the Chicago's Lakefront Trail. And we've come up with some ideas, some creative ways of doing that. But maybe not anything that was easily done. You know, we're talking millions of dollars and many years of work to make something change there. They're saying if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. At ETA, our group, we are kind of a group of creatives, and the only tool we have is creativity. So we see every project as like an art project. So we've taken, you know, so I'm a graphic artist. We have some architects in the group. We have writers. We have a urban planner student. So we have plenty of creative ideas. And we created a series of posters a few years back to highlight the problems or opportunities in our area. And I'm not going to get into all these, most of which will never happen, but I'm just going to highlight this one, which is the Channel Trail, would end at Green Bay Road and Metro Tracks. And this is a concept that we inherited from Wilmette. Some folks there had this notion. So it's not one of our creative ideas. It's relatively short, and it seems like a no-brainer. So why hasn't it happened, and what's it going to take to make it happen? Our proposal is extending that trail along the channel, which is all on Metropolitan Water Reclamation District property, and it is subleased to the city of Evanston and Wilmette, and they sublease it to the Canal Shores Golf Course. So it's all green space. It seems like it would be an easy thing to achieve. We're used to kind of taking on impossible ideas, but this one seems kind of reasonable. It would be a way of connecting the Channel Trail to Sheridan Road bike lanes, the Wilmette Lakefront, and Gilson Park. And then also, if you can get beyond that Metro Track, Green Bay Road intersection, you could jump a little bit to the north and connect with Poplar Street, which could take you to the Green Bay Trail. So this is a potential regional connection that we could bridge with this project. Part of the infrastructure issue in Evanston is that we have two barriers to easy transit. One is the channel, and the other is the Metro Track corridor. So these are kind of walls between communities in Evanston. And if you look at a map of economic wealth in the area, those darker areas are the wealthier areas, and the lighter areas are the less wealthy in our area. And you can see along the channel, there's quite a divide in income. And also there's some of that divide along the metro tracks east and west. So, you know, being on the other side of the tracks or the other side of the channel, this infrastructure, you could say it's been used to redline communities and divide income groups. And that's kind of the definition of inequity, is just different abilities or opportunities for different groups of people. So you could look at those communities north of the channel and having access to the Sheridan Road and Green Bay Trail, and those south of the channel having the North Shore Channel, you know, two separate recreational or transportation infrastructures. And also, if you look at racial identity, these darker areas are whiter, and the paler areas are less white neighborhoods. So again, you can see, you know, maybe this infrastructure has been used to separate different racial groups historically. So whether it's the infrastructure or the preference not to let different people, you know, live in different areas, I'm not going to try to cast blame or define what historically happened, but it's just perhaps suspicious. So the proposal is this 1.5 mile extension to the Wilmette Lakefront. Currently, it looks like this upper picture that is fairly disused, and we envision, you know, some way of getting beyond those bridges and along the channel. So that's the biggest hurdle of the project. This is an illustration of the concept that we did for our local roundtable newspaper, connecting the Channel Trail there on the south end, and then going to Green Bay Trail or the Wilmette Harbor. The channel allows different levels of activity. We're working with people at the Canal Shores Golf Course to suggest that we will not interfere with the game of golf, that will be on a different level, a different playing field, and separate from also the road, and so safe from vehicle interactions. So why would Wilmette be interested in this and have come up with this concept some years back? Well, it's clear that along the channel you can get to the 312 River Run bridge that is now attracting people down there. There's the restaurants and shopping in Evanston and southward. There's the new Lincoln Avenue Bridge, and you can even get to Chicago Cubs remote parking. So you could bike from Wilmette to the Wrigley Field parking for a nice day at the ballpark. And why do people south there want to get beyond that dead end? Well, there's Northwestern. There's, as I mentioned, Sheridan Road bike lanes, the Green Bay Trail, Evanston Hospital, employers such as Northwestern and Evanston Hospital, the Civic Center, etc. So our project has had a timeline like this, where we started informally meeting and coming up with ideas and doing rides and events, social media and presentations like this. And along the way, we formed Evanston Transit Alliance. And while one of the presentations that I gave was for the 5th Ward, in Evanston, which is the historic Black Ward. And the alderman there, Bobby Burns, afterwards said, "All right, what's the next step?" And that's something that no one's ever asked us before. We're good at talking and doing our activities, but actually making something happen was new for us. So it was kind of a challenge and an opportunity. Bobby Burns' interest gave us credibility and was able to attract other politicians and stakeholders in the area. So we started a monthly pizza meeting. This is an idea that we got from people who were behind the 606 trail, doing regular pizza meetings, so giving people a reason to get together and talk about it. And at that first meeting, it was kind of outlined like the path forward. We had a local planner also join us and guide us, and we had Cook County present. So the ideas quickly coalesced, and the Invest in Cook grant was targeted for a feasibility study. So there's various steps in the process of one of these projects, feasibility being the first thing. And after some months, Evanston Transit Alliance gathered more than 20 letters of support from stakeholders and institutions in the area. And then in March of this past year, we applied for the Cook County grant. So already you can see, you know, this is over a year in the process. And then we were selected as the recipient of one of those grants over the summer. And again, we had significant help from a specific planner who wishes to remain nameless, but he's really been a good aid in helping us get through this process that is foreign to most of us. So once we receive the grant, then quickly there are activities that are happening. There's agreement to fund between Wilmette Park District, who applied for the grant, along with the partner organizations, Wilmette, Village of Wilmette, and the City of Evanston. And then an intergovernmental agreement between Wilmette Park District and Cook County happens so that money can be dispersed to Wilmette Park District for the project. And then they will be publishing an RFP to get engineering firms to propose the project. It's a fixed amount of money dictated by the grant. So it's really, this is the amount of money you have to work with to do this feasibility study. It needs to happen within the next year, et cetera, et cetera. There will be a selection committee to choose the engineering firm once those applications are in, sometime early this coming year. And a steering committee will be put together. Evanston Transit Alliance will be part of both of these committees. And the steering committee receives 3 reports from the engineering firm. And then that needs to be completed within a year. And that's kind of referred to as phase 0. After phase 0, and if that does look feasible, then an engineering study would be funded with more grants, hopefully. And that's phase 1. Phase 2 is the detailed engineering study. So you can see this is going to take some time. It's going to take some money. And then the last phase is the engineering phase. And, you know, by the end of the decade, hopefully we're riding on this 1.5 mile extension. And hopefully we can mend our broken trail network here in Evanston. So again, you know, instead of Evanston being where the trails end, you know, maybe with more work, we can be the place where bike trails connect. Thank you very much. And handing off to the next person.
All right. Thank you so much, John. Excellent presentation, and definitely appreciate your leadership and the ETA's leadership and all of this. And we'll have to bring you back here for an update in a few years to see where this trail is going. But this is great momentum for
Yeah, stand by for the ribbon cutting in
Yeah.
2030.
Save the date. Great, thank you, John. And next up, we have Jim O'Reilly. Jim, would you like to get started?
Thanks, Maggie. Really appreciate it. And thanks to ATA for hosting this today. Like John, we have a group of riders, the North Branch Trail Alliance, and John and I have been on some rides together. So this is just perfect. Myself following John in this presentation. So for today, think of it like this map, which has been shown and reshown over the years as something that gives you an idea. So like the last 10, this is almost 10 years now, it's 2015. This map originated from a discussion, public meeting, a lot of excitement. Unfortunately, this didn't move forward because there's negotiations that are still going on between Union Pacific and the city, specifically CDOT, 39th Ward of the city of Chicago. But this is a 2.8 mile rail line that is, the tracks were taken out in 2009. You'll see about that later, but just realize I have a lot of links in this presentation. It kind of gives you a real good flavor of what's been going on. So to orient you, that southern connection, which is a bit of a reach if you think about it, because it butts against the rail lines that are existing at the fork between essentially Jefferson Park, Mayfair, and the southern end of Mayfair, almost to Irving Park, and then all the way up to Devon. The stretch into Lincolnwood is built already. So these details, I was kind of jumping the gun here, but in 1890, this was a freight cutoff. So it was built to try to relieve the congestion, not unlike what today you see with all of the different organizations that are trying to, do the same thing, essentially to try to handle traffic, freight traffic. And this is due to fracking. Some of that traffic expanded. Union Pacific said, oh, this is, what do I have to do to get this land or this rail line back? It appeared that they were trying to make deals, but essentially this is how it started as a freight cutoff. This was a passenger line in the 20s and to the 40s. Then it moved out of that phase in 1958. Then it was just freight. And then, like I said, rails were moved. And people often they can't quite picture the Weber Spur. So that's why there's a lot of maps in this presentation. But again, it's 24.5 acres. Some of the other highlights on here. Who is Barney Weber? He's a character from our history. He's a guy who owned a brick company. He manufactured bricks, and he managed to have a great deal of say-so about the future of rail in Chicago, specifically the northern end of it. And, so just think of it, this was a true rail line used quite often. I remember from my childhood in the backyards at Sauganash. I didn't live in Sauganash. I just saw this thing. Then it wasn't used. So by 1999, it was just kind of defunct. Took another 10 years to get the trail. So there's been discussion since 2009. And really, in terms of my neighborhood organization, North Mayfair Improvement Association, people have been writing letters to see what's going on since 2005. So this is a nice little map here. I don't know if we can show just a tiny bit of this, but you can get a sense if it plays. Does it play through the?
Jim, I can stop sharing the slides and bring up the YouTube if you'd like me to.
That's fine. We'll do that if we have time at the end, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll just keep going. But this was a neat little thing I thought I'd throw in because this showed an aerial view. It was done 2 years ago. these pictures depict the actual location. When you look from the overlook over the Chicago River, just past the North Branch Trail, you have all these different things going on at the same time. So you have people passing through these trails. You got the deer in the water. That happens so often, it's unbelievable. And there's my daughter Emma over the overpass, looking very happy to be out and about. And this is just an amazing thing that's not that far away from Foster and Costner, where the trail starts. This is another set of views. Some of this is very familiar to John, since he's dragged me on more than one occasion up to the Weber Spur. As a focal point in his maps, he's got number 4 for the Weber Spur. I have that by my desk at work. And I think about that every day, because I think about this site and how manicured it is at this one spot. You go from gravel straight into this manicure because there's a landscaper, Williams Landscaping, not an ad or anything, just a reference point. And then Alarmist Brewery is just down below. And then that last shot is Lincolnwood. So that's the future of a trail as you think about it. Lincolnwood, the stories that I've linked here talk about the development of that section of the trail. And it's just kind of bizarre how much it's changed over time. But yet the section in Chicago has just kind of garnered more and more attention, but not action to follow. So this was the first meeting in 2015. Sorry if this is a little small. I was resizing this. This is a photo I was trying to find from DNA Info back when we did the hosting of the actual meeting in 2015. It was one of these proud moments of like, okay, we're going to get somewhere. Well, we're still at that point. This was another one of these engagements with Weber Spur. Recommendations were part of this overall Bikeways workshop. So the specific areas for the Weber Spur were just, as you could see, that it was a connection between the North Branch and North Channel, that it has to have regular access points like the 606. There was a lot of engagement back then to try to figure out, like, what could we do? What engagement can we do? What can we mirror that's already been done? And a lot of good conversations, some of which has led to Bryn Mawr being identified as a major arterial to like connect the bike lanes in lieu of having other connections between North Branch Trail and North Channel Trail, and all of the network that's right at Bryn Mawr. So this is another map that shows, and this is part of the discussion. This shows better, I think, than anything about all of the connecting trails that are around it and why this network is so important to keep going. One of the things I did want to highlight is that this is the first map that really thinks about, like how the Green Bay Trail is connected in. And it links up directly to what John was talking about. Because to me, without this connection, the city's connections to the suburbs and back to the city from the suburbs really is severed. So again, I've covered most of this already, but this spoke route is one of the most interesting thing, because all of a sudden you would be able to broaden Elston Avenue, which in the city is a main diagonal route to downtown. Without it, again, you just have these two trails existing where there's riders constantly on both sets of trails, but without a connection across, there's no way to get there except for people to be able. So Bryn Mawr is necessary to do that, and the Weber Spur is necessary to connect up into the suburbs and back down. So it was also featured in 2022 as part of the Trails and Corridors. And it was in the design phase 1. It stayed there, like I said, since 2015, but really back as far as the discussions go in 2005. And what are we going to do with this rail line in 1999? It sits off the books and Union Pacific's list, but conversations with the city tend to be circular in the discussions, because there's an individual who's worked on this on the other side of the process now. I don't want to blame anybody, but I think it's like there's a set of interests, And I think that we're at a point now that in order to afford the project or really see it as an asset, this is something that it will have to be capitalized, and the loan would have to be built into the capital because of the expensive nature of the project. I think one of the slides I passed discusses how there's really 10 different spaces that 10 bridges you have to cross. This is one of the most recent things, and I wanted to highlight this before I wrap up, where this has been something that I've been troubled about how this bridge that I showed in the kind of like a very beautiful day, great shot. This is another angle. So there's a 2 or 3 spots on that bridge. The left-hand side of the shot where there's the rail, just the decrepit. There's also a hole that if you know this spot well, you're going to go to the other side of the bridge. And this resident, Terry Tarter was an incredible advocate over the years, just documenting the Weber Spur on her own. And she contacted CBS2 Chicago and said, like, look, this is not safe. So there was a little further down, a little bit closer to Foster. Yeah, it was the Foster Bridge. There was a dog that jumped off after an animal and jumped the 13 feet down. And that's what this story is about. It's about the hazards to both people and pets, and just the fact that there's not been anything done. And the blockage as a part of the Union Pacific, what they've said is stay off of this trail. Now, it's kind of impossible to do because like I said, you have a network of trails inside the woods. You have this connector. You have a junction point, like between the North Branch Trail and the Weber Spur crosses right through it. So, the good part and really the future part is the promise that there have been recent discussions about restarting the process. So what this means is the city of Chicago through CDOT, I'm sure that Active Transportation Alliance will have a seat at this table to try to garner, move the discussions along. And Alderman Nugent, who's the 39th Ward Alderman now, she was in one of the earlier slides, I mentioned Alderman Lorino, but I just wanted to say that Alderman Nugent appears ready to support the discussions again and see where they go with Union Pacific. So that's an exciting piece of news, because I think, just recently, I know this is a discussion that now many of us had, including John and I, about whether this would be something that would be going forward, and whether we would have progress. And so any progress is good progress. I've learned that through the years. The meeting that you saw, like I said, the mention of Bryn Mawr back in 2017 and 2013 to now in 2023, when it actually has funding as a connector between the trails, is a good sign. Now that's far away too, but it has a few years to go. So I appreciate all the time and thank you. We'll do that Q&A later, and I will advance to the next slides and then back to Maggie.
All right. Thanks so much, Jim. And we appreciate you, watchdogging this and being so involved and keeping it moving forward. And we're definitely looking forward to seeing what happens as this process the community process gets re-engaged. And we'll continue to be sharing updates, because this trail, all these trails are definitely priorities for us and a lot of people that it would we really want to see these trails completed. So thank you again for your work on this. And with that, let's pass it over to Barbara from the Midwest Sustainability Group.
Thanks, Maggie, and to my colleagues, John and Jim, for your excellent work. One thing that jumps out at me is the slow pace of progress. We're in our project coming up on 10 years. We had a lot of volunteers over the years get frustrated by the incredibly slow pace of change, but our important work and our persistence, I think will have great rewards in the end. So thank you. our project is a little more rural, and I'll show you a map in a second. I want to start out by pointing out that I'm using a community presentation that we give. I'm not going to give the whole thing because it takes longer than 10 minutes, but I'm going to scroll through it so you can see some of the pictures. We had a photo contest to highlight what we're trying to protect here. We have a wonderful communications director, Mike Trupa of Mike Trupa Communications. He worked for ELPC decades ago and worked on this project back then. And he has a very diplomatic way of saying it, but he always says, Barbara, just shut up and show the pictures. He says it much nicer and more diplomatic than that, but it's a very beautiful place we're trying to protect. And I'll give you just the thumbnail. You saw the larger map of where this fits into the scheme of things, but where Route 53 ends at Lake Cook Road, just north of Palatine, this project would have gone north up to the Grays Lake area. And then the plan over the years is evolved a bit, but mostly in the most recent iteration, it would have gone east and connected 94. So for the tollway, this was a project that would have connected 355 to 94. And I'll show you a picture of some of the dangerous environmental damage that would have done. And to the west, it would have connected up with Route 12 and gone further north and caused more ecosystem damage up there. But this has been a project that they started acquiring this land in the 1960s to extend this project north. And so it's become a de facto wildlife corridor. The part we're talking about right now is just the bottom part of the T, if you will, and that's about 12.5 miles. We've been working on this project as a coalition, and I'll talk about our coalition in a second, we're coming up on 10 years now. And the first thing we had to do was stop the tollway project. And that was a bad project for a lot of reasons. It was a bad transportation project. It was a bad project for communities. It would have induced massive urban sprawl. It was outrageously expensive back then. When they stopped it, it was $3.6 billion for this project because it's expensive to build over wetlands. So our coalition we call ourselves the Green Corridor Coalition. So it's us, Sierra Club, Open Lands, some important and concerned citizens, we call them. We're led by Tony Dean, who used to head the Illinois Department of Conservation years ago. Lake County Audubon is with us, and Friends of Indian Creek Wetlands. So this is a map that Open Lands created. It's actually an interactive map, but the part we're talking about is this bottom part of the T. The little bulbous area is where they would have had a tollway interchange. That's why they own a lot of land there. To the east here, it would have gone through, that's the Liberty Prairie Reserve, which is an incredibly important ecosystem. To the west, and you can see they don't own all this land. The line here is the land that IDOT owns. But to the west here, it would have gone straight through the middle. That's the Volo Bog State Natural Area. We've gone right through the middle of it. And then to the north up here, all that orange area is the Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. And it would have gone right through the middle of the glacial cames up there. So you can see why all the environmental organizations are in on this project. But just the bottom part of the T that we're trying to protect right now is incredibly important ecosystems as well, a lot of aided wetlands and so on. So in 2020, the Illinois General Assembly formed a task force. You can see who was on it, all the stakeholders, the county, state, everybody was at the table, the local mayors that have corridor land in it. At the end, they advocated and recommended that this be turned into a state park and natural area with a nature trail. The county affirmed that recommendation in last February, I guess it was. So the state we're at right now is we're waiting for the land to be transferred from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, from IDOT to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, because it's state-owned land. They can do an interagency transfer without having to pay any additional money because we already own it. We have a supplemental fact sheet. We pitched this to people. We talked about the 7th generation principle of thinking 7 generations ahead about your impact. So we were trying to get the stakeholders and elected officials to understand that this is about protecting things for future generations. We compared it to the Chicago lakefront. We told the story of forever open, clear, and free, and that instead of just thinking about short-term economic development, we're talking about long-term investment in communities. These pictures are all of the corridor area. Normally when I give this presentation, this was the front page of the Chicago Sunday Tribune that we were on, because Mike is a great comms director. And we normally read our vision here, but we only have a short amount of time. So this is the Des Plaines River Trail, and I'll show you in a second where this project would connect up with that. It's a very beautiful area. So here's in the bottom left, can you see my cursor in this? Yeah, so the bottom left here is where the corridor is. You can pretty much see it. And the green arrow, and this was done by Open Lands, so thank you to them for their map helping. The green highlighted area is a trail that already exists. It goes up north here by the Lake County Fairgrounds, if you know where that is. This is the Libertyville Prairie Crossing Metro Station. This is Prairie Crossing up here. And then it crosses, there's an underpass into Oak Openings here. This is all the Liberty Prairie Reserve. And this connects over to the east with the Des Plaines River Trail. So it would connect this, and down in the southern end, it doesn't already exist, but there's an opportunity to connect this with the Millennium Trail in Lake County as well. I'm going to skip over this. We talk about economic development. This is how we sell it, both to community members and to elected officials, about the importance. And I'm sharing this with you because I know there are other groups doing advocacy. So we talk about the importance of both financially, ecosystem services valuations and things. We talk about ecotourism, and then we explain what ecosystem services valuations and what's at stake here, why this has value. A lot of stakeholders, elected officials in particular, they see brick and mortar buildings as where there's value, and they don't understand that there's value in protecting land. And so we have to teach them. Talk about wetlands. I'm going to skip over this. Lake County does have more threatened and endangered species than any other county in Illinois. A lot of scientists believe this is because not only do we have Lake County Forest Preserve holdings, but we have this altogether is about, I think, 30,000 acres. If you count the top part of the T too, that's protected. So we've done this through, traditional grassroots organizing. I kind of end it for the volunteers, for the community members, with ways they can help. We had there's only been 2 highway projects to our knowledge that were stopped in the United States. One was, both were in Illinois. One was called the Hastert Highway. So when we first started this, we reached out to them and we asked how they did it. One of the things they did, you talk about celebrating your successes, right? So we figured every year this wasn't a tollway, was a celebration, something we're celebrating. And so we had something called the Open Space Celebration. We did tabling, petitioning, lobbying. My group can't do election stuff, but Sierra Club has a PAC. They worked through elections, just about everything you can think of. So funding, I know Maggie wanted me to talk a little bit about that. We, every group has their own sources of funding, so I can't speak broadly, but we did also have grants from 2 of the communities that were opposed to this so strongly, Long Grove and Hawthorne Woods, because it would have just devastated and destroyed their culture and their community surroundings, which are so important to those towns. So we had that as well. We normally don't take government funding, but in this case, our goals were completely aligned. So if anybody knows State Rep McLaughlin, we're still trying to get him on board. We have all the Lake County delegation except 3 members signed on to a letter in support of this, so we can get this land transferred. We're also trying to get $1.5 million into the budget, which is what DNR wants to start the planning and to staff the planning for the state park and nature trail. And I'm just going to throw this out there. A friend of mine who became a friend through this process, he used to work at the tollway, and now he works for, I think, Metro Strategies, said as a funding mechanism for this, that he said, have you thought about running fiber optic cables underneath your trail? He said the tollway does this. It adds pennies onto the dollar of creating the trail. It's I think he said it was a 2-inch, tube, if you will, and it runs fiber optics in the middle of it. And then you lease out that fiber optic space to companies that need to run fiber optics. And it can make us millions of dollars a year. So that's one of the ideas we'll be bringing. The next step, once this land gets transferred and we get the funding, will be a similar working group to determine what this state park and nature trail will look like as it goes through each community. That's all I have.
Great, thanks, Barbara. I don't know if you said this, but is there kind of a time frame of how long that transfer is expected to take?
The governor can transfer it right now, actually, and they are supportive, but they wanted us to show the support of the Lake County delegation first. The two of the members that are very tippy corner of Lake County, mostly they represent Lake McHenry County, support the project, but they didn't want to sign on to our letter because they want money for the Fox River dredging or something. So it was just politics there. And then Representative McLaughlin has not made a decision. So if anybody's in his district, definitely give him a call. Timeline is we'd like to get this started as soon as possible, of course. They did not have a supplemental budget during the veto session. So now we'll be working with the General Assembly in the spring to secure funding to move forward.
Great, well, thanks so much for the update on this. Yeah, we're and all of your photos were very striking and definitely make the case
See why Mike says just show the pictures.
Well, with that, Alex, do you want to take over to go through the questions that have come in? And if anyone else has any questions for the panelists, please add those to the Q&A and we can get started on that.
Thanks, Maggie. So we have 3 questions. I'll just go through them in order just to get them over with. And as Maggie mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A so we could get through them. The first one was most likely towards Jim. There's a 2,000-foot long section of the Weber Spur Trail that would look like the new North Branch Trail on the south, with the Saginaw Trail to the north at Bryn Mawr. Currently, there is barricaded off with Jersey barriers on the south end of the North Branch Trail. At a minimum, removing them would make it possible to link the 2 trails. More of a comment than a question.
Yeah, and no doubt, I saw that comment from Bob Castigar. I know Bob, and I would say this, obviously a lot of us, the organizations have actually said some of the same things, the North Branch Trail Alliance members, and, we do rides, done rides since 2017, once the southern extension opened up on the North Branch Trail. And then North River Commission, we've advocated it in our plan that we've done with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, that there has to be, more of an open and free, clear, open and free, I think is what we would want. The response from Union Pacific is, hey, this is still our land. This is private. And, we put these barricades up as a way to handle crossing with the North Branch Trail over the Weber Spur. It was the compromise. And I do remember the alderman at the time, Alderman Lorino, saying, look what they made me put up. And I pointed to the, for the other elected officials, I pointed over the overlook. I said, but look what's here, and you'll understand why people are putting barricades, meaning the bridge, back when it opened, we had concerns about the state of the bridge and the concrete falling and whatnot. And again, Union Pacific has said the bridges are safe. So it's a bizarre, and recently in the area, there's been a lot of the bridges painted. So that's kind of like the only thing keeping, and I know this could lead to its further erosion, but it keeps everything there for the moment, the painting of the bridges in yellow and white. So it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't answer your question, Bob, about what could be done to take them down. It just says this is the status quo. Thanks, Alex.
Yep, just wanted to add this from Bennett, just noting that the new CDOT 2022 trail map extends the Weber Spur Trail all the way to Montrose, which would make it easier connection to get to the Blue Line. So just wanted to note that. And then it looks like there was another one just followed up to that. When is the last time the state has created a park, and what would typically state appropriation be to plan such a park?
I don't know on either question, actually. I know that in Lake County, somebody showed me a map of tax dollars sent to the state and how many you get back. And we are, I think Lake County and DuPage County and Cook County are the lowest, dramatically lower than the rest of the state. And the rest of the state has a lot more protected land. So I know a lot of my colleagues feel that we are underserved in this area, considering the amount of natural spaces we have up here. In Lake County, we have Chain of Lake State Park. I believe there's there's the lakefront, and then there's one other small state area, and there's the Volo Bog State Natural Area. So we don't have very much, and I think that protecting some more open space up here would be very valuable. I don't know, $1.5 million, I believe CMAP is going to be staffing these meetings, because it's going to be a lot of work to bring in all the stakeholders and to hire a planning company, which is always, as you guys know, the devil's in the details, right? What kind of planner do you hire? It's not going to be easy to protect. There's some really sensitive ecosystems here. So we want the public to be able to enjoy this in communities. We want to connect people to nature, of course, and have important trail connections, but also at the same time, we have to protect ecosystems. So they may have to build, for example, paths over a wetland, right, to protect things. And where there's a lot of endangered species there, they're gonna have to avoid that. And it'll be complicated. Another thing, I don't know if this is valuable to anybody or not, but I don't know if you're familiar with George and Vicki Ranney, important naturalists, and George was involved in transportation planning for a long time. But George was able to get the underpasses in the Liberty Nature Preserve under Route 45 and the one that goes under Route 21 that connects with Independence Grove and Des Plaines River Trail. He was able to get those through using mitigation money when they developed the Prairie Crossing environmental community, I guess we'll call it. They of course had to pay mitigation money, and he was able to convince them by using mitigation dollars and to invest in these underpasses. I know some of you are trying to get bridges and repairs and things, but as your counties run out of places to do wetland mitigation, it might be worth exploring. That didn't really answer the question. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how much, but I just know that DNR and CMAP said it was $1.5 million to staff the working group, to engage the communities, and to hire the planner.
It looks like that's all answered the question. Fair enough. Just to add another note from Pam, the Union Pacific Railroad actually required the Forest Preserve to install those concrete barriers to keep the North Branch Trail users out of entering the Weber Spur Railroad.
Yeah, that's correct. That's a even better statement about why that is. And I think it's a really sad statement, though, because you're preventing what it sends as a signal. For the same reason you're setting up the safety argument, you're also preventing discussion about what the land use should be. Like it really unimaginative but very direct thing that Union Pacific could do right now is engage in good faith discussions with the city and with others to get this going, but also to kind of reimagine the space since they're not using it. And we know from evidence of what I've already described, it will just continue to erode. And so the plus side is the idea, the potential of it.
And then another question to that, does anyone have any updates about the bridge at Pratt over McCormick and Channel?
No, I think that think that's Lincolnwood property, and I'm not sure what the status of that. I know they're interested, but I don't have any specifics.
Great, thanks, John. Another question, are there any plans to add proper bike lanes to Bryn Mawr Avenue between Kedzie and the Weber Spur Trail to make it safer to use as a connection to the trail?
I certainly hope so. At this point, there's $400,000 that was set aside as part of the state budget led by State Senator Vilbolam, and there was an additional set of money, approximately $200,000 that was set aside for Representative Kelly. I understand that that separate $200,000 has to be re-earmarked or reapplied, also has to follow capital bonding rules. So I would say right now there is funding that is available for protected lanes, and I'm sure that there will be a discussion about whether there will be concrete barricades or there will be pins that will go down Bryn Mawr, and there will be discussions likely about contraflow lanes. There's a lot of things in the future. There will be a Hollywood North Park is leading some of this in my community just near it, and they're having a meeting this week to actually discuss it. So
Great, thanks for the update, Jim. Looks like more of a comment talking to the Weber Spur Trail too. It would be good to know how they are ensuring equity, caring for the land, and the balance of planning and making it accessible for all. So that's just a comment from Laura. And then just to finish it off with the final question on what can residents who live near and to support these trails do to help keep these proposals moving forward. So kind of an advocacy question on what can residents do who live near do to support each of one of these projects.
So you could join Evanston Transit Alliance. We have a Facebook page. We don't have a website, but you could also contact me. And I think my phone number is in my presentation. So happy to talk to anyone about that.
yeah, go ahead,
sorry.
Barbara.
I would just add, in addition to supporting the work of our coalition and our groups, we do have a website, greencorridorcoalition.org. I would add asking your elected officials, what are they doing to support trails? What are they doing to support, sustainable communities? What, and voting for people that's, I'm not, we're not a PAC, but I'm not going to name names, but when they knock on your door, but when you see them collecting petitions, ask them what they're doing and hold them accountable, and vote for people that support these sort of things. Go give public comment at meetings. Tell them it's important to you. Write them, email them.
That's exactly right, Barbara and John, because the thing is that there's no way if people in an area, this is like what the police usually say to our community in North Mayfair about reporting incidents. When people report things on social media, but they don't go to the proper channels to report something, then it just gets unnoticed, and it's really just a chat amongst people who already know what's going on. You have to get outside of that group. Weber Spur has been visited from every individual I can think of. Congressman Quigley's been out there, actually inspected it, looked at it before as the North Branch Trail was going in. Multiple aldermen have been there. Cook County officials have been there. There've been a lot of discussions about what to do. And I think what pushes the needle is attention, investment in your community, and join, like in my community, North Mayfair Improvement Association, join North River Commission for a larger picture of an entire area of Albany River communities within the city, and join North Branch Trail Alliance if you like to ride bikes and occasionally visit and do economic development. I think sometimes you might meet people from Evanston.
Great, thank you everybody for those wonderful comments. Just two updates. Charlie Sachs actually put in an update for the Pratt Bridge. It's in Lincolnwood and is in phase 1 engineering, which was supposed to be completed this month, and actually shared a link. So thank you, Charlie, for providing that update. And then another comment was public comment has gotten Metro to focus more on their bikes on trains program, so it does work when elected officials and agencies are listening to what people have to say. And then one last thing that just came in, as a former elected official, park commissioners and well met, I would strongly agree that the elected officials respond well to emails from constituents. So we're hearing positive things that if you reach out to your constituents, we could get some positive trails and new amenities coming to our communities. And with that, we are at time. I just want to say thank you to our presenters. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And Maggie, any words?
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone, and get involved with these 3 groups, and we'll be sure to share out their contact information and this presentation and the recording and spread the word and get involved. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Active Transportation Alliance, for hosting these webinars.
Of course, we love it. So hopefully more to come. So
Yes.
thank you all.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.